online for authors. I'm chatting with Noel Stark, author of Love, Camera, Action. Welcome, Noel.
Thank you for having me.
I am super excited. Loved the book. But before we dive in, let's get kind of like an elevator pitch. What are people going to find when they open up the cover of Love, Camera, Action?
Well, it's funny. You stumped me right off the top. I have to get back into my elevator pitch mode. Okay. It's about a scrappy TV director who's got her first gig on a Hollywood big show. It's about a grumpy director of photography that she's got to talk into, fulfilling her vision, and he wants none of it. It's an enemies to lovers, rivals to lovers, grumpy sunshine kind of rom-com that takes place on a TV set. So yeah, that's what you'll find.
So my first question when I talk with an author who writes a very different genre than me is why romance? Why rom-com? What about that said, ooh, this is what I want to write?
I just love them. I love them so much. I grew up watching rom-com films of all stripes from all decades. I was always fascinated with them. I think they're very, very difficult to make because they need to be fun and breezy and sexy and to have a little bit of something to say without being,
preachy.
Didactic.
Right.
And when you have all those, they are so special and everybody loves them, whether they admit it or not. And I just think they're magic. And I went through a very big time in my life when I was reading a ton of romance. Like I was having a hard time in my life and I just needed an escape.
Right.
And when I was reading the romance, I kind of began to understand how they were made, how they were written. They're very templated, they have a very strict structure, which I find appealing. And I just thought one day, I could write one of these. Super naive. So naive.
Right. Well, aren't we all when we first sit down to write, we think, this is going to be so easy. And it's like, or not.
I can do this. Like you're an author, so
Right.
But I, stuck with it and this is what came out.
Fantastic. So the idea is, like you said, kind of this, she's got this chance on a movie set and she meets up with a guy who really doesn't want to give her the chance. He's kind of in the, let's just get through this thing. And I don't need all of your cool ideas. Yeah. And so they bump up against each other. Where did that idea come from?
Well, I work in TV.
Okay.
So when I wanted to write a romance novel, I wanted to write it in a world that I understood. I didn't want to spend a lot of time world building because I wanted to understand the form, understand the characters. So I placed it in something that like in a world that I really understood. And because I have been a director in the past, I've had crushes on my directors of photography many times.
Right.
They were work crushes. Nothing ever happened. But the relationship between a director and a director of photography is very charged because you have to work very closely in order to make this television show or this movie work. And if there is any kind of friction between the two of you, then it can make the whole process really unfavorable. So it was a natural conflict to me.
Right.
Relationship. Mm-hmm.
Well, and they tell you to write what you know. And so you kind of did start with something that it was like, well, I know this, because that was going to be one of my questions. I learned a lot about what goes on in a television set because I've never been on one and I wouldn't know. And all of the different pieces and parts and who's doing what. There's a lot of people who are all vying to be the one in charge at any given moment. And there's just a lot of stuff going on. I found that to be interesting. Given though that this is a life that you've had and know, did you have to do any research or was it truly all stuff that you knew?
No, it was all stuff that I knew.
Yeah.
Like I've never been in charge of directing a television show, but I have been on a lot of TV shows, both drama and reality TV. And so I know how things work. Like an interesting complication for writing this was because a TV set is so complicated. The hierarchies are so complicated. The vying for attention, as you said, is very nuanced. It was a challenge to boil those things down into something that people who don't live in that world could understand. So it was an interesting exercise to write something that I was thinking, is this too insider baseball? Is this interesting? Am I explaining enough? It was an interesting kind of puzzle to work out.
I think that happens regardless of what genre that you're writing, because I know that in historical fiction, I learn all kinds of really cool facts, really interesting, that I find fascinating. And I'm putting them into my book, and I look and I think, yeah, that isn't necessary. Like, this is too much. These people are not here to read the history of name the period of time. They're here to read a historical fiction, and you have to learn what to put in and what not to. How much, like you said, is this too insider information? Is it too much that they're not going to follow what's going on? Or have I not explained it enough that they are not following what's going on? Right. And so I assume, just based on my understanding of things, that there's probably a whole lot more that's going on in a television set than you could possibly put into this book.
Yeah. I mean, and there's different perspectives. There's different experiences. Like I've been almost every position on a TV show, from the lowest to the highest. And it's very different. You have obviously very different jobs, but you're looked on very differently, and you can get away with certain things in different ones. And so it's a very complicated ecosystem.
Right. Well, I found that to be interesting. Here's something else that I found interesting. I don't normally, romance is okay for me. And mostly I don't like romance because, especially as they get spicier, because people tend to focus a lot on the spice and not much on the characters, and it's way more about the sex scene than it is about the character and their growth. I didn't feel that with your book. By the time we hit a spicy scene that might have turned me off, because I tend not to read very spicy books, that I got there, I was so invested in the characters that I read anyway, which bravo.
Thank
really
you.
Bravo for you, because I like the closed door sex scenes. That's the kind of books that I tend to read. And so when they get a little spicy, I tend to think, I don't know that I want to read this, but I was invested, and I absolutely had to know what was going on with these two characters. Like,
that is such an insane compliment. Thank you. I love it so much.
Yeah. So, I mean, really bravo to you. I want to know, did you think about that? Was that a purposeful, you said, I need to make sure my characters have some depth, or did that happen naturally because you know how stories go? I'm just curious if that was a thoughtful exercise on your part.
I think, I personally love a lot of spice, but if it doesn't serve the characters, if it doesn't serve the plot, then to me, it's quite boring. Like, it's like, why am I seeing this? Like, I don't care.
One more. Yeah. Oh, great. Now they're having sex again. Yeah, exactly.
So for myself, I had to, because they are rivals and because it is a workplace romance, it was very important that it made sense to me that they got together, like that the situation made sense, that their emotions led them to that point. Because it's also very frustrating when you're like, oh my God, like, why are you kissing that person? Like, that's a dangerous, you could lose your job.
Right. Because in this case, they really could have lost their jobs. Like, this could have been big, bad problems. And so, yeah, you're right. It did have to feel like this was a natural progression. And of course this was going to happen. You did good at that too. Cause I never once felt like I had to suspend my belief in order to move forward, which was good.
Yeah. And I do love, like, I've heard from, it's fascinating with romance. Some people feel like there's not enough spice in it. Some people think it's too much. Like, it's so interesting. And one woman gave me a review. She really liked it. And she said, I just skipped the spice because I don't read spicy books. And I thought, good for you. Like, don't read that. If you're not into it, don't do it.
So I didn't skip. I kind of skimmed. Like, I was afraid I would miss something super important. And there were some things important within the scenes that I didn't want to miss, but I didn't have to get deep into the spice stuff, because it's like, okay, yeah, I know what happens. I don't need to read about it. And it's kind of, so everyone has their own space in that, which then goes to like, what do you feel comfortable writing?
Yeah,
because it has a lot to do with you as well, in terms of like,
well, and just to speak to that, I think if something doesn't happen with the characters within those scenes, if they don't, if it doesn't reflect who they are or where they are at the moment, then why do you have it? Like it's you have to justify why you have every scene, but also a sex scene, they have to grow in some way, or they have to learn something, or they have to run away from something, and it has to be in that scene. It can't just be slot A goes into tab B, like it needs to mean something. And so that's what I try to do with every.
Well, and like I said, I felt you did a wonderful job of that, because I often get to those spicy things and I think this really is just not for me. But instead I was like, well, Callie and Jory, I got to know, like I have to know. And so I kept reading, which was really good. Cool. So speaking of your two main characters, we've got Callie and Jory are the two main characters. Who was harder for you to write?
That is a good question. I think Callie was hard to write because she came from a very difficult background, and to write someone who doesn't require help, like she was in charge of her family. She looked after her sister. She made sure her mom didn't go to an institution. To talk about a person who's constantly in charge, which is something that really allows her to be a good director, to show the flaws and the vulnerability, to accept help, to understand that she actually had to give herself time to be selfish in a good way, was really hard to write, because that can be like an unlikable character in a way, where you have to kind of prove like she needs boundaries. Like she needs to say, I can't look after everyone. I have to look after myself sometimes. Right. So that was very tricky. Jory was tricky because he is in such a dark place with his health, with his career, with his own, place in the family. He comes from a good family, but he had, there's a death in the past. It was hard to make sure that he was likable, because there was so much stuff going on with him. And I think we've all known characters like this that are shut down and just like, I'm doing what I want and my way or the highway. And to make him realize that he needed to grow, that he needed to learn a new language by speaking with a female director, with understanding that he was part of the problem when he had always been put up on a pedestal. That was also hard to make him likable in that way.
Right. Well, that's the one thing we have to do with characters, because not all characters are likable. But you don't want your unlikable characters to be so unlikable. Like they have to have something redeeming in them. And then these two characters are going to fall in love. I mean, it's a love story. We know it's a rom-com. I'm not giving anything away here. And And so you can't have him or her so unlikable that it would be unthinkable that the other one would see something in them. Right. And it's going to have to be more than looks, because looks isn't going to pull someone to do something dangerous, like decide to start a office romance. Right.
Exactly.
Right. So it's going to have to be something bigger than that. So no, I found it really interesting. You have quite a few supporting characters within. Were there any that were your favorites?
Oh, I really love Dan, who is he's the assistant director, the first assistant director. So the first assistant director is kind of like the manager of the set. They make sure the trains run on time. And he's really gruff. He looks like he's kind of, maybe a bit of a bear, but he's got a heart of gold, and he's so sweet. And he's fun because he can see what's going on in the romance and kind of like dabbles in bringing them together in his own way, while trying to keep his nose clean.
Right. I'm staying out of it, but I see it,
But I see it, and he pushes sometimes, and he's like, Jory, what are you doing? Like, would you come up to speed? And it's sweet to see him with his wife. Like, I really like seeing likable male characters, because I think it's easy to villainize most of the men.
Yeah,
because it's easy.
especially in a rom-com too. I mean, it's easy to make the men out to be all the bad guys. And so it was good to see, not that you didn't have a couple of bad guy male characters, because you did.
Yeah.
But
yeah, for sure. So he was my favorite of the side characters. I also really love Paolo. I love Talia, like the two actors. I think they were really fun. So yeah.
I really liked Paolo. I liked watching his arc, and true, it was a small arc because we weren't, he wasn't a main character, but I really liked watching him go from this, exceptionally handsome, but everyone seems to think not too talented, individual who comes across kind of as an arrogant prick, right? And turns out that what he really is insecure.
Yeah.
And he needs someone to hold his hand, and you get to see that, right? And I don't know, I liked that. I liked seeing both of those actors grow. In fact, that was
good. Yeah. I like Paolo at his heart is very sweet, but he's learned to cover that up because of, basic male toxicity, that he's learned that his sweetness isn't really valued. And so then he covers it up with all of this arrogance
and bravado,
which also doesn't work for him in the end. So
right. And never did work for him, and he just wasn't aware that it wasn't working. I found that interesting. Yeah. So, Noel, are you a plotter or a pantser?
Oh my gosh. I'm like, for this book, I was pure pantsing, because I did not know what I was doing. I really didn't. It took me a long time to figure out how to write, how to, put all the characters together. Now, I'm kind of a plantser.
Yeah.
If that makes
people
sense.
In the middle. Yes.
Yeah. I plot a little bit, but I find if I plot too much, I can't discover those beautiful moments that just kind of come from the ether. And then send you off into a different direction. But if I don't have some kind of plotting, then I will be writing nonsense for a lot of time, and it's just kind of a time waste. So yeah. What about you? Which are you?
I am so much a pantser. I have tried many, many different kinds of plotting, from heavy plotting to very light plotting. And my characters absolutely refuse to play with me if I have a plot in front of me. They stand against the wall and tap their feet and tell me, you let me know when you're done with that. Because when you are, we'll tell you our story. But until then, we're not participating with you. And I think really what it is that in my everyday life, I'm very structured. And I like structure. I have lists and notes, and I like crossing things out, and I'm very structured. But when I go to be creative, that structure gets in my way, and it doesn't allow me to, I don't know, just like you said, discover and become and see and whatever. And so really for me, it would be better to wander around in the woods for a while and then finally come up with where I'm going, because my structured mind, I like things too neat and tidy, and that never works in a book.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. There's a great quote by Terry Pratchett who says, your first draft is you telling yourself the story.
Yes.
And I really love that. And it helps me when I'm drafting the first draft to be calm and not be full of doubt, that I'm just like, I'm telling myself what's going on here.
I'm just getting it out. I tell people that I do what I call word vomit. I just get the story out on paper. And I would never show that to anyone.
Oh, God,
it's horrible at that stage, but it now has a flow. It has a beginning, a middle, and end. I know where the story's going. It doesn't take long to figure out what I still need to do to it. It's lots, but it's like, and then I can actually put all of the stuff into it that needs to go in. That first draft is just getting it out of my head.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
Absolutely. So I'm also curious, is your writing life, are you an everyday writer and you have a certain time and space that you write?
Yeah, I try to write every day, even if it's just a little bit. Because I work in TV and I'm also a single mom, like time is at a premium.
Right.
But I find if I don't write a little bit every day, I get grumpy.
Okay.
So
So everyone likes you more when you write. Okay, I get it.
It's a service to others. Really.
I see.
Yeah. And so even if it's just a little bit, even if it's just 500 words, even if it's just an idea, like just getting it a little bit of time every day.
Yeah. And see, once again, I am the polar opposite. I'm a binge writer. So I might write for 3 or 4 days, like 10, 12 hours, and then not write anything for 2 or 3 weeks.
Oh, wow. That's so interesting.
And I would not recommend this. This is not, I tell people all the time, I do not recommend my process. My process is really quite ugly when you look at it. I mean, I'm a binge writer and a pantser. You can't ask for anything worse than that combination, but it has worked for me.
Yeah.
And so I kind of figure, well, we'll just go with it for now. And maybe, I don't know, maybe over time things will shift and change a little. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's finding your own process is a journey of its
own.
It is.
I
like finding out, okay, I can't write at night. I'm not one of those people who can write at night. I have to write in the morning. If I can write in front of my kids' Taekwondo class, so I can throw in 300 words in that situation, but some people wouldn't be able to do it at all, So it's interesting finding those roots.
Yeah. So obviously then you don't feel like you have to be in your office to write. Do you have a space where you like to write most?
Not really. I bounce around. I find sometimes I get stagnant in one place. Yeah. So if I move a little bit, I don't go to cafes or anything like that, just because I find it takes too much time to get there and then
get there.
Right. So
you live in LA too, which means that getting around is harder. It's not like here in rural North Carolina where I can hop in a car and be somewhere in 5 minutes, right?
Somewhere. Yeah,
right.
Exactly. So I bounce around, but I try to keep my kind of, ceremonies the same, like the setup, just so that my body knows, okay, we're writing now. We're not doing
writing. Yeah. No, I understand that. I actually like to write outside of my office. I think when I'm at home, I tend to have this feeling like what I'm doing isn't as important as everything else that's going on, like the laundry or the grocery shopping or the fact that I probably should get dinner on the table or all of those other things. And so for me, I have just found not being here. So really anywhere else.
Yeah.
And I don't mind writing in noise. It doesn't bother me at all because I had 4 children. I know how to cut that noise right out. I can focus and just not hear everything else going on around me because that's what I had to do. For a long time, when my kids were growing up, I had an office in the living room. It was the only space we had. And I just learned not to hear them. I'm working right now. I don't hear you. So
Yeah.
I
mean, I think you have to carve out whatever space that is open to you, like my son, when I was writing and he was quite young, he would come and interrupt me, with whatever 5-year-olds want to interrupt you with. And it got to a point where I said, okay, mommy's in the middle of something. You need to hold on to that.
Right.
Thought. And until it got to a point where he would come up and I would just look at him and he'd be like, oh, you're in the middle of the thought.
And so now, what's funny is when my kids were little, I actually had a stoplight system. So on my door, if the green stoplight was up, it meant come on in, whatever. If the yellow stoplight was up, it was think about it. Can this wait? Can someone else in the family help you? If there was a red light up, it meant unless someone is bleeding or the house is on fire, do not open this door.
Oh my God, that's so smart. That's so great.
And it really helped them because they would get to the door and think, oh, it's yellow. No, this can wait. And so they
Right.
would back away from the door, and it was good for me. And you have to not overuse the red or it doesn't work well. But,
Yeah.
on those occasions where you needed, like I am in the middle of something, I'd put that red thing up there and I could hear them sometimes out in the hall, but it was like, no, we can't go in there. Nobody's bleeding,
That's funny. Well, what's funny is with my son now is that when I go into his room, he gives me the look.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, you're in the middle of something. I will step back. I'll think about it. And whether or not I'm bleeding.
You say, like, am I bleeding? Is the house on fire? Okay, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
So, Noel, I am assuming this is not going to be your only book. So what are we working on now?
Well, I've got one on submission right now with publishers. It's done. It's like a time travel kind of rom-com where a woman in West Hollywood wakes up and there's a Bridgerton type guy in her closet, unconscious, and hijinks ensues. So that is out, and right now I'm actually writing a book based on my original book, but the TV show that they're shooting a TV called The Demon. So, and it's funny because a lot of people came up to me about my book and said, man, I really want to see that TV show. And I was like, oh, and so now I'm writing a book. That's The Demon. That's the TV show.
That's cool. I love that. Do you think you'll always stick with rom-com, or do you think that you'll branch into anything else?
I think like for now, for sure, like there's different types of romance. The thing I'm working on right now is paranormal. It will be funny, but it won't be like a standard rom-com. But yeah, I really love that world. I think it's really fun. I think people can use escapes, especially these days. But I mean, I've got a YA lit fic in my head that's kind of going around. So maybe. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Are you like me where you get these ideas and then like I have to write them down so that they'll get out of my head and allow me to finish doing what I'm doing? Because I get all kinds of ideas and it's like, yes, I don't have time right now. I feel like I'm talking to myself. I don't have time right now for that. You're going to have to. And so I write down and it's like, there, it's written. It's written down. Now I won't forget it. Leave me alone. I do not have time right now. Yeah.
I know. It's the thing I like about writing every day is that it keeps you, even if you're not, being productive, you're not getting a bunch of words down, you're engaged in it. So then just lighting that fire means that maybe, when you're shopping or like, at the grocery store, an idea might trigger and you'd be like, oh, that's something that this character would say, or, oh, that's an interesting idea, and so it keeps you engaged in the process so that your unconscious can kind of be working on it.
I feel like I do that just in my head. Like I rewrite and write things all the time without ever coming anywhere near my computer to type them out. I'm doing it in my head where I'm like playing the story almost like a movie. And it's like, no, that isn't going to work. And then I go back and something else. But often when I am other places, I think, ooh, that will do it. And so I have an app on my phone that I talk into really quickly and just give it a little quick something so that I don't forget, because I'm older than you and I get home and I forget. And it was like, shoot, I had a great idea. What was it? I have no idea. Yeah.
Well, it's hard. Like you're doing so many things in a day too. It could just be pushed out by the fact that like, oh, I have to like, get the cat this thing.
Right. Right. It's one thing or another. There's always something. Yeah. Wonderful. Well, Noel, if someone wanted to reach out and talk with you about your work, about things that are coming up, about your writing, how do they do that? What's the best way to reach you?
Well, they can go to my website, which is noelstark.com. I'm on IG and TikTok at Noel Stark Author. Probably IG would be the best place. That's where I'm most available. They can just reach out and talk to me there.
Wonderful. So guys, I'll have all of that in the show notes, so you'll be able to reach out to Noel, run out and grab the book, Love, Camera, Action. It is really, really superb. When I found out that this was your debut, I was just blown away because it was really well written and I really enjoyed it. So
Thank you
wonderful
so
job.
much. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. And so guys, when you get the book, read the book and like the book, make sure that you also review the book because as authors, we love those reviews.
Love them.
And Noel, Noel, thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you so much, Sherry. This has been a delight.
Thank you for listening to Online for Authors, where I, Terry M. Brown, author of character-driven fiction and host of the podcast, introduce readers to characters they'd love to invite to lunch. Tune in next Tuesday for another podcast episode.